Kirby has always been a cool guy, and in my whole life, I've always understood that. Whenever I would see Kirby, I would always think, Kirby's so sick. He just eats, runs around, does whatever he does. That's so cool. Because I never actually played a Kirby game before. The first one I had ever played was a demo of Forgotten Land on the Nintendo Switch Lite back in 2022. Running through that demo, listening to the music and exploring this grassy, abandoned downtown city immediately pulled me in. I was so stunned at how fun this game was. For some reason, even though my whole life I thought Kirby was pretty sick, I never thought about actually playing any of the games. Not out of disdain or anything, it was just because it never even crossed my mind as something I could do. I didn't even know Star Allies existed before playing the demo, but I found out about it 10 minutes after I completed it because I went in on the Nintendo eShop and I immediately searched up all the available Kirby games I could play to see if there was any more demos. It finally crossed my mind that I could just play Kirby games. So I tried the Star Allies demo and I tried the Super Kirby Clash demo, but neither of them really resonated with me as well as the first one did. About a year later, I ended up finally buying and playing through the Forgotten Land, and it was really fun and I enjoyed it a ton. I ended up getting an old Nintendo Wii when I was out, and I played the original Return to Dreamland, which was super fun for me. For me, my first experience with the Kirby series was in 3D, so playing a 2D Kirby for the first time was new and interesting to me. It's probably insane to hear that as a longtime fan of the franchise, but I'm young, so give me a break. After playing through those two games, I filled my craving for Kirby for now, and was content with the two games I played and ventured off into some other stuff for a while. Until recently, I just picked up a 3DS for a really good price at my local game store, and I looked into all the games that were made for the 3DS. And to my surprise, Kirby actually has a bunch of games on this system. But the one that stood out to me was one called Kirby Planet Robobot. I looked into it, and I couldn't find a single person who had a bad thing to say about this game. All I could find was praise and how much people enjoyed it. So now, that brings us to today. I finally got my hands on this bad boy, and I'm excited to play through what people call the cult classic of the series, and see what all the hype is about. Fair warning, I'm going to be going over the entire game, and my thoughts on a lot of little details about the entire game. So if you're like me, and you haven't played this one yet, and don't enjoy being spoiled, I strongly recommend you go play this game for yourself. Then come back to this video with your own opinion, and we can compare and contrast. For those of you who have played this game already, and don't care about spoilers, or are just curious about the game, let's get right into it. Once you boot up the game, it opens with a cinematic of planet Popstar being invaded by this massive spaceship that just completely takes over everything in a matter of like 83 seconds. I'm not even kidding. Like, they just effortlessly take control of everything immediately. So when Kirby wakes up from his nap, the entire planet has already been overthrown, so he sets out on an adventure to rid his planet of these invader guys. This opening cinematic is really cool. I always love the cutscenes at the beginning of Kirby games. It's so cool to see everyone in such high quality. They always do such a good job of setting a scene and getting you excited to play. So before we dive into the actual game, I wanted to go over the way I decided that I was going to structure this video. The way I've decided to go over this game is to look at each area in the game. The areas serve kind of like chapters in Black Myth Wukong or like worlds in Mario. So I think it's fair to take a look at each one individually to point out some thoughts I have about each section of the game and point out some really cool levels that stood out to me. So that brings us to Area 1, Patched Plains. Patched Plains is a super cool starting area, and I find that in the two Kirby games I played previously, the starting area ended up being one of my favorites in the entire game, and here it's no different. They have to sell you on the main idea of the game in these areas, so in order to grab your interest and keep you focused on the game, they have to make these ones pretty cool. A lot of these early levels are super inspired, and showcase some of the new mechanics you'll be seeing throughout the game. There's something about these first grassy areas in these Kirby games that always pulls me in. In Return to Dreamland, I love the beginning, and even more so in Forgotten Land. I think the natural plains in that game is the best zone in the entire thing. And in terms of atmosphere, it's just amazing. HAL's Labs just has it down to a science when it comes to creating a fun environment to get you excited to play a new Kirby game. With that being said, none of these levels stand out so much when compared to the later ones in terms of gameplay, but that's to be expected since their only purpose is to be an introduction to the main ideas. In the first level, the main boss of the area is introduced, and it's a remix of Wispy Woods from the previous games. I thought this was pretty sick. We also learned about these little purple cubes called code cubes that function as Waddle Dees from Forgotten Land. For those of you who haven't played Forgotten Land, the cubes basically serve as like keys to the final boss of the area. The door opens, and the final boss door won't open unless you've collected a certain amount of cubes to unlock it. You collect these cubes by completing little challenges or puzzles throughout the levels, but it's never really that complicated, and if you're just playing through the levels, you'll collect enough just by playing the game. You won't really have to think about it too much. In the second level, we're introduced to the gimmick of Planet Robobot, and that's being the mecha suit Kirby can control. My initial thoughts were probably the same as the target demographic for this game. I just thought the mecha suit was really cool. It has a unique form for each ability just like Kirby does, and the suit is just so powerful and fun to use. There's some fun changes it can make to the environments, and it's used for puzzles to allow you into certain areas that were previously locked before by lifting giant boxes, spinning a wheel, or undoing a screw. There really isn't much else that's noteworthy about the second level that I'd want to touch on besides that. It just feels like an extension of the first one, but it's still introducing us to new things that we'll be using throughout. Level 3 changes the environment quite drastically and takes us on a train, a complete change in environment from the previous 2 levels, and I thought this one was really cool. I actually enjoy the little battery puzzles that are on this one, and that stayed true throughout the entire game. Switching between the 2 lanes on the train was fresh and interesting to me, more so than the previous 2 levels because of how natural it felt. It was also my first time seeing the circus ability. I say that because I have no idea if it's in any of the other games, but I absolutely love it here, and the moveset is so fun and silly to use. Kirby also has this pretty cool hat on that I liked. I was getting straight up demolished at this ring around the rosy part just because of how bad I wanted to keep the upgrade. We do leave the train however though and make our way through some more planes, reminiscent of the last 2 levels, until we run into the first big boss in planet Robobot. It starts out with these 2 green bots that you destroy by ripping the screws out of their heads. It's honestly kind of brutal, and the sound effects for it are satisfying. It sounds like absolute destruction. After we destroy those 2, a giant shows up named Gigabyte. He throws a massive hand slam at you, and you break off the armor on his hand by attacking it until the screws start to show. Once you rip both the screws out of both hands and destroy them, it flings you towards him with a big explosion over to his head, and you rip the screw out of his skull, completely destroying him. It's honestly really cool and a super brutal way to beat a boss. I actually love this fight. It felt so grand and had so much spectacle to it. After we beat Gigabyte, we go into the 4th level, and it starts off with a camera pan showing us the outside of this giant white factory. I'm pretty sure it's a drill, supposed to be robbing planet Popstar of its natural resources. I love the run-up, the spiral staircase to the main entrance. It feels like there's something grand waiting for you on the inside. When we get inside, it's all mint green and has lasers you have to avoid. These lasers can honestly be a bit deceptive about where they're pointing, so I never mind dodging them. It's always pretty fun. It was also my first time seeing the Archer ability, and this one's even cooler than the Circus one in my opinion. Kirby turns into a bard from Final Fantasy XIV. He gets this cool hat with a bow, and the arrow it just feels so good to use. The moveset on this one is so fun. I especially love the running arrow barrage attack, and the charge shot feels so devastating to use. I also found an invincibility candy on this level, so I just got to use it on a boss and just stand next to him and he died. It was pretty cool to see. The mech part of this level introduces some more mech-specific puzzles. You spark and connect cables with the spark upgrade. I thought it was okay, and that's really all for the 4th level. Each area in the game has one of these drill/factories unique to it, and it's a little formulaic, but honestly they're different enough from each other so it never gets too stale or anything. This one being the first is probably the least eventful, but it gave me the Archer ability, so it gets some appreciation from me for that. But that leads us to the final boss of Patch Plains. And I actually love Clanky Woods. It shoots rockets, drops giant metal balls that are supposed to represent leaves. It digs into the ground and launches rubble at you. And in Phase 2, we get a transition into this 2.5D arena, and Clanky Woods will chase you around it in circles, then stop to attack when it gets close enough. Then finally, in Phase 3, it raises walls all around you, locking you in so that you have no escape and you have to dodge the rocket shot at you. This fight is super fun, and it's such a nice send-off from the first area that I really enjoyed. I actually love this fight a lot, and the use of 3D was so cool to me. After you defeat Clanky Woods, we see one of the legs of the invader's ship get blown up, and we arrive at the second area, Resolution Road. Resolution Road starts you off on a street, acting as a pedestrian. I didn't know looking both ways before crossing the street could be something used as a game mechanic. The art here is so insanely creative. The houses are little milk cartons and straws function as chimneys. The cars you avoid have little eyes on them like the Cars movies, and the headlights on the street lamps actually function better than the ones in my city do. Next we jump to the rooftops, hopping from building to building like Sly Cooper or something. I love the music that plays at this level, and the environment is nothing like I've seen before in any other Kirby game. It all feels so inspired. We also are introduced to the ESP ability, which is a cool reference to Earthbound, with a little sideways hat on. Once again, this ability is so cool, and it's honestly my favorite in the entire game to use. The second level starts off with more of the same. There's a boss fight with another invader armor, but it goes down pretty quickly. None of the mini-bosses in this game are really any threat, but that's to be expected. It is a Kirby game. After taking the mechanic for yourself, we get a jet upgrade that turns a level into something completely different, making it more like a side-scrolling shoot-'em-up. I don't know if that's completely accurate, but I am too lazy to look up the correct term for it. This level's pretty fun, and it's a nice change of pace. I just wish it was faster moving or wasn't as long. I'm being so negative because there really isn't much to do in this level at all. It's really a breeze, and it moves so slowly that it feels like it drags, and there just isn't anything until the end. Cogs shows up out of nowhere, and I don't really know what it's supposed to be. My best guess is that it's something connected to the invader ship, but it's not the most interesting fight ever. It's actually kind of bland. It's just a couple of cogs that you shoot, and then they blow up at the end. Level 3 introduces us to the wheel ability. For how simple this is, it's so fun to use. And comparing it to the last level, it's a much more interesting vehicle-based mechanic. Rolling through lasers and jumping over environmental traps while bulldozing enemies makes the dopamine receptors in my brain fire. The factory level is definitely a step up from the first one, and it introduces us to the little memory challenges that will reward you with the cube if you can remember the correct path to take. I like these a lot. It's something to do and it made me pay attention to where I was going. I say this because I kind of just run high speed through all these levels without doing much thinking, and in result, I'm missing out on a lot of the purple cubes because of it. The mech part shows us the stone upgrade for the first time, and I absolutely love this one. It's so much fun punching things with this upgrade. The punches feel so heavy and destructive, and the sound effects reflect that too. Everything just feels so heavy. And the ground slam is my favorite, because I don't think any of the enemies in the Kirby universe deserve to be hit with that. Got to use a bit of Kirby's jet ability too, which is cool, but I don't know. I guess I just am not the biggest fan of this one, but overall I like level 3, and I definitely enjoyed my time with it. Level 4 takes Kirby to a casino. This is not something I expected at all, and it was a very welcome surprise. The creativity in this level is just absurd. There's a giant roulette table spinning in the background as you walk across playing cards, playing chips, and even pool tables. You avoid these giant spiked dice, you get thrown onto a roulette board, you pick up a remote control and control a little robot Kirby by synchronizing it with your own movement. You get this crazy ass mirror ability that reflects you into a bunch of absolutely insane formations. The music that plays is so fun and upbeat, it makes me wish that the level never ended. This is by far my favorite level from Resolution Road, and I was actually so caught off guard by how they could just throw a level like this in out of nowhere. Every moment spent in the casino was so insane, and I was so upset when I came across the golden door at the end marking the end of this level. After winning 10 trillion Kirby coins at the casino, we face off the final boss of Resolution Road, the HAL Defense API. It clones itself into a bunch of different bosses, and it turns into HAL Krako, HAL Doomers, and finally HAL Ice Dragon. Once you beat all these silly little trash bosses, it powers up into this hollow slithering snake made of cables and iron that's called HAL Coilu Rattler. Its head is a blue hologram to emphasize like where you should be attacking, and it slithers all around the arena, and it hurls rocks at you, it even grabs you, and takes you all over the arena as well. Once the snake goes down, the HAL Defense API malfunctions and blows up. My first impressions of this boss was that it wasn't as good as Clanky Woods, and watching the footage back I still think that way. I don't think I appreciated this snake for what it was. The movement around the arena looks really cool, and looking at all the details on the hologram makes me wish we got to see the snake in its actual form, not just a hologram. After the second ship leg is blown off, we head off to Area 3. Area 3 is Overload Ocean. The ocean levels in the Kirby games I've played have always been my favorite, both in Return to Dreamland and Forgotten Land. Something about them is so appealing to me. The music always invokes this whimsicality, and the atmosphere radiates that glowing vibe of summertime. So with that being said, I was really excited to play this area. The setting of the first level isn't so much beach, but more cargo shipwreck, or underwater welding kind of vibe. I ran into this blocky boss, and I thought it was actually really a creative mini-boss. I haven't seen it in the 2 games I played, so I liked it a lot. I was just enjoying everything. Something about these Kirby water levels just hypnotizes me, and I don't really think much about how I'm feeling when I play them, because I'm too busy listening to the music and looking at Kirby wearing swimming goggles. The level doesn't really bring much to the table besides an introduction to Overload Ocean and the vibe that it's going for, but that was enough for me. The second level, however, does. We get to experience the wheel upgrade on the Kirby mech that completely transforms into a car. The car is really cool. It can jump between level lanes by doing a flip across them, and comparing between the car and jet levels, it's night and day for me. The car is so fun to control. You're not set at a predetermined pace, and you can move wherever you want, and you can go as fast or as slow as you'd like. The level is really fun, and it was a really good introduction to the car sequences in this game. Moving on to the third level, which is another factory, but this time we start underwater. Wow, this made me very happy. The music in the factory was nice, and I got to use the ninja ability for the first time in this game, and it's one of my favorites of the franchise. I kind of struggle with the inputs in this game a bit though. I don't have the best grasp on the moveset if I'm being honest. This level is on rails, sort of, in the beginning. It's one of those levels where the camera moves and you have to stay in frame or you die, and I honestly liked it a lot. I like the feeling of being rushed and having to keep up for once. I like the Kirby games a lot, but no one ever brings up the challenge or difficulty when speaking positively about the series, so whenever there's an inkling of it, I'm always happy. Using the ESP mech at the end was super cool. I didn't realize it here, but this upgrade is actually so busted it's insane. It's definitely my favorite upgrade in the entire game, and it's also my favorite ability, so it's cool that those go hand in hand. It's a shame I didn't get to use it more. This level was nice. I don't really have much to say about it, other than I thought it was fun and I liked the feeling of being rushed. Level 4 takes us to an ice cream factory. The music is very somber and cold, which I thought at first didn't make sense, but that's because I'm an idiot who barely graduated high school. My initial thoughts on this level were a lot more negative than they are now after I've watched back the footage. If I'm being honest, I think it was because I was getting hungry and I hadn't eaten all day. The level has a couple unique challenges and puzzles to it, the main one being carrying the snowman head to its body without letting the fire melt the exoskeleton that supports it. This level isn't my favorite, but I still enjoy the idea of exploring an ice cream factory in Kirby. I really like the idea of the reason that there was so much scrap and construction in the ocean was because of an ice cream factory. This is the first area of the game that has a 5th level instead of a final boss being the 5th level, so I'm happy about that because without it, we'd be losing my favorite level in the entire game. Level 5 takes us to an underwater city composed of greens and blues and purples. It just looks stunning. The music is absolutely beautiful, and it's everything I could have ever asked for. I absolutely love everything about this level, from its environments, to the enemies, to the music, to the sound design. My only complaint about this is that they take us out of this beautiful level to fight Mr. Bonkers, but luckily we get to dive back in after making quick work of him. Levels like this are the reason I really enjoy playing Kirby games. In any other game, I absolutely hate water levels. The movement's so slow, everything feels so tedious, but here it's so hypnotizingly pretty the way Kirby contrasts with everything. It looks so nice, and looking at it is just eye candy. Part of me wishes they'd make a game based on Kirby being underwater in a place like this. Unfortunately, however, this isn't that game, so we do have to move on. The lead up to the final boss this time is a bit longer than usual, and we're greeted with a cutscene of a major character this time. We learn that the main villain of this game is a capitalist corporation that wants to monopolize planet Popstar for its natural resources. When I saw this, I was so caught off guard. It is not what I was expecting at all for a main antagonist of a Kirby game, but I really like it, and honestly I should have expected it because the Kirby games are always pretty wacky. Susie has a plethora of attacks she can hurl at you, and she changes the environment several times over the course of the fight. She's definitely one of my favorite fights of the entire game, not only in pure gameplay, but the arena is so full of blues representative of the ocean levels before it. Although, I still don't know why there's disco balls hanging in the background that are pouring water, but it looks cool, so it gets a free pass. Once beaten, Susie takes off with the help of a little drone, so we'll definitely be seeing her again at some point. Overall, I think this area is one of the strongest ones so far that we've gone over, and it's definitely one of the stronger ones in the game too. Maybe at the end of the video I'll have to make a tier list or something, but if I forget, don't hold it against me. After leaving beautiful Overload Ocean, we move on to Gigabyte Grounds. Area 4 puts us at the halfway mark of the game. Gigabyte Grounds is a desert, which is on the exact opposite side of the spectrum of everything I was just saying about water 5 seconds ago. But with that being said, I really like this area. At level 1, the background has giant blenders pumping some sort of fluid through these giant tubes, and you can see telephone poles made of forks running all over the desert. The atmosphere here is actually my favorite of any of the sandy settings in the games I've played. It was the first time I got to use the Doctor ability for Kirby, where you can rush people with a clipboard or throw ibuprofen at them. I thought this ability was really cool, and just the level overall was nice to explore. I haven't touched on it yet, but the cutter ability for the mech is definitely one of my favorites. I love shooting these blades and watching them just absolutely wreak havoc on the environment around them. Not too much to say about level 1, but that's probably going to be a common theme for every one of the areas. I thought it was cool, but besides that, not much to say. Nice atmosphere. Level 2 switches things up by making it based around climbing on these fence platforms. Poison mist is blowing at you through fans surrounding you, so it's pretty fun to navigate the surroundings through them. In the mini-boss fight with Moros, they put one of the fence platforms in the arena, which I thought was a nice touch and a fun idea, and it plays surprisingly well too. There isn't a mech section in this level, and I honestly didn't mind because I don't know how that would work, and the gimmick was kind of wearing off by the end of the level. Level 3 brings us to some pyramid building, and I was completely caught off guard by the haunting groan sound at the beginning of this level. This level is extremely cool, and I still feel guilty about going into it with a negative mindset. I think I was just getting a bit fatigued from playing the game in one sitting, but the puzzles here were finally starting to be a bit more thought-provoking, so that kind of offset the issue. The atmosphere of the green lighting and the dark pyramids is so cool. Honestly, it feels like inside of a Mako reactor or something from Final Fantasy VII. This music is fantastic too. It's such a dramatic change from everything before it. Level 3 was such a cool level, and definitely a highlight for Gigabyte Grounds in my eyes. Level 4 brings us to another factory/drill level, but after the last one and how creative it was, by now I was starting to get very bored of these factory levels and how formulaic they were becoming. They all have minor changes for sure, but it was not enough for me. Regardless, I moved forward only to find out this level was another plane section. I was disappointed, but honestly, all that went away because this one was so much more hectic than the one back in Resolution Road. It felt like there was always something to shoot at, and they even incorporated one of the memorization puzzles into this one, and it was really fun and applied the same level of pressure from the water factory. The more this level went on, the more fun I had with it, and I'm glad because this was a much needed change of pace. With me enjoying this level so much, the disappointment that I had was immeasurable. When I came to the final boss, it was just cogs, copy and pasted from the last jet level. Then, all of my disappointment is washed away again when Core Kabula arises from the scrap, revealing a second phase. And this might actually be one of my favorite bosses in the entire game. The moveset is so well thought out and fun to fight against, and I can't believe how low my health got for a second. For a level I went into so negatively, it's cool to see my expectations get completely flipped on my head. Level 5 brings us to the same pyramid level as level 3, which I kinda want to complain about, but honestly, the assets and the backdrop are so cool that I just don't mind at all. Unfortunately though, I don't have much to say about it. It was kinda just level 3, but again, it felt like they made level 3 too long and just cut it in half and split it into 2 levels, using the second half as level 5. We get to see the bomb upgrade for Kirby's mech, but honestly, I'm just not the biggest fan of this one at all. You create a little robot bomb guy that are mainly used as a device for solving puzzles, so to me it just wasn't all that exciting. I'm pretty indifferent on level 5, I don't really have any strong opinion on it because it just feels like level 3 again, but it's not as fun and the wow factor's gone. However, level 6, being the final boss, I do have a strong opinion about. We run into Susie again, and she shares with us yeah, Meta Knight was kidnapped. They got him. Susie turned him into a clown-looking robot, completely robbing him of all of his aura. In all seriousness, he does look kinda cool, I guess, but no, he doesn't look cool. He kinda just looks like a jester. Susie doing this to him is reason enough to fight her. Forget saving the planet. I should probably talk about the fight itself now though. It's cool. I don't know. I was kinda let down by this one. I like a couple of his moves, especially when his health starts getting a bit low, but I love his fight so much in the Forgotten Land arena, so I think I'm just a bit spoiled. This boss just didn't feel as special to me as I wanted it to, and I can't tell if that's clouding my judgment at all. I beat him with a cool move though. It looked pretty sick. My main thought for the fight was I was disappointed, and it felt like it could have been a lot cooler. Meta Knight has become my favorite character from the franchise, so I'm always hoping that they take his fights to the next level for me, but this one was just a little bland. After defeating the jester-looking Meta Knight, we go to Area 5, and that takes us to Rhythm Route. This music-based city is stunning. It really does feel like a rhythm game. The first one that comes to mind for me is the Persona 4 rhythm game. The first level introduces us to some cool rhythm-based obstacles. I love all the assets in these levels. Being downtown in this futuristic city with this funky jazz music playing in the background was such a surprise I couldn't predict, even if I had like 6 hours to brainstorm the kind of levels that were going to be in this game before I even played it. I love these big turtle guys. Their bedazzled shells are so fun and cool to look at. We get a new upgrade for the mech that uses sound to blast enemies away. It reminds me a lot of Volcor from Brawlhalla with the sound effects. It's a cool upgrade, but I don't even think we see it again after this. Not that I can remember. The second level takes us back to the casino from Resolution Road, and I was very happy to be back. The theme is different from last time, and with there being more purple than red. Some fun teleporting puzzles are introduced here, and avoiding these giant golden 8 balls is pretty fun and exciting. I love cutting through them with the blade upgrade. Level 2 was cool, and I'm happy they remixed the old casino level because I enjoyed it quite a bit. The reason I wanted to criticize level 5 of the last area was because it reused the pyramid asset so quickly. Here they gave you quite a long break to, really miss the casino level from Resolution Road. Level 3 takes us to the factory level of Rhythm Route. I like this one quite a bit, I guess. It definitely felt the most different out of all the factory levels. The colors are completely changed and it doesn't really follow too many of the same patterns as the other one did. I love the dance pad sections and having to keep an eye on what's coming up so you can position yourself accordingly. It was a nice addition to the mini-boss fight to make them a little bit more difficult. It was probably one of the factory levels I liked more. Level 4 is based around the car mechanic again, just like the one in Overload Ocean. This feels like an upgrade of that level. The level design allows for more freedom than that one did. There's definitely some crazy jumps you can do here, and they definitely encourage it well with some of the cubes being out of reach and I can never get them. All in all, it was a pretty fun level. Driving up and down these music instruments with the city backdrop is a fun visual, and it was very pretty to look at. Level 5 brings us to a train level, like all the way back in Patch Plains. This level was cool. It felt like an upgraded version of that level again too. I feel like this area is just kind of like they went back and remixed and redid some of the early levels to make them more difficult and interesting to fit the end game. I do enjoy these levels and this area too, but it doesn't feel like the most unique thing ever, even with the cool assets and art. It makes it so I don't really have much to say about it because it's just remixed stuff from the game before, just upgraded. Everything I already said still applies, and anything new that can be added is just saying it's a bit more difficult and more intricate now, and the levels are longer. There's a bonkers boss on this train, and I like him, and the little rotating tower at the end was cool. That's really all I have to say for this level. It kind of felt like it lasted forever, so that's not really a good thing either. Level 6 brings us to the final boss, and I'm very happy to say this is a banger. Probably one of the best fights in the entire game. We hear the final boss's name for the first time. We run into Susie for a third time, and she unveils her newest project. She unveils King Dedede. He's been cloned, and he looks a million times cooler than Meta Knight did. The fight starts in a normal face-off, but half health, he splits into 3 different King Dededes. It's a fun wordplay on his name since there's one for each D in it. Sometimes they all do different attacks, or sometimes they'll do the same attack, just one after another in a sequence. Once you kill all 3 of them, the fight goes into a completely different third phase on top of the skyscraper, with the entire city in the backdrop. A completely new health bar appears, and Dedede is in a 3-person mech that rotates around the skyscraper and shoots all kind of things at you. There's a little engraving on the floor that tells you the path he's going to take, but once you get to the second phase, he just starts flying, and that thing, it just moves at like light speed, so it's hard to tell where it's going anyway. I absolutely love this fight, and for an area that was kind of disappointing to me because of how much I wanted to like it, I was very happy that the boss at the end of the area was so much fun. With Dedede down, we blow up the last leg of the invader's ship, and we finally move on to the finale. We move on to the final area of the game, Access Arc. The first level immediately sets the tone that the story is reaching its climax, and as the first level starts with us climbing our way towards the entrance of the ship, it's a fun little sequence. I had no memory of it at all until I watched back this footage. I'm not sure what happened, but I think someone wiped my brain of this little sequence. Kirby makes it onto the ship, and we get a first look at the big bad man. The ship is reminiscent of a castle with royal red carpet on the floor, and the interior is like a dark gothic tile, or like a marble, I don't know. Looks cool though. This level feels like a gauntlet of sorts. These little security force mini-bosses actually gave me a hard time the first time I fought them. I really love the mechanic of having to do enough damage to their remains after you beat them, or they'll just self-destruct and set the surrounding on fire. I overall enjoyed this level. It really did feel like I was going to be in for quite the final act adventure. Level 2 is the inside of a reactor. I think it's supposed to serve as the factory level, but it's more challenging than any of the ones before it, but that's still not safe. I really enjoy the puzzles though, where you have to synchronize with the little robot Kirby. Something about them scratches my brain, and I was happy anytime I got to do them. I just loved a few security force fights and some puzzles later. We finish off the level with relative ease. Once again, I enjoyed this level, but honestly, I think in the back of my head I knew it's because this would be the last factory level I was going to have to deal with. But that brings us to level 3. And guess what? Level 2 is not the last factory level I was going to have to deal with, and my thoughts were confirmed. I was immediately dreading playing through this level, and I had to listen to the same exact song that I was playing last time. It's been 30 minutes straight of listening to this song by the end of this level, and there was nothing really noteworthy here at all. The bomb mech upgrade showed up again, but I don't really like that, so positives to this level in my head. Moving on to level 4, once again I'm greeted with the same backdrop I've been looking at, and there's a cool little arena for the security force bots that I've fought 6 times already too. But after killing it, a portal opens up, and I'm thrown into this insane acid trip synthwave dimension. This is definitely my favorite setting in the game. The ominous music that plays here is so good. The blocks spawning in and being drawn into the world is such a fun idea. Dodging them felt so nice, and the animation they have when they pop into reality is so smooth. I love it. We fought another security force boss, but the backdrop was too cool for me to even notice the repetitiveness of it. Level 4 was such an unexpected change of pace. Whenever this game starts to get old, they immediately throw something new at you to make you forget that anything was ever wrong. Level 5 is still in the synthwave dimension, but this time we get to explore it using the mech suit. Kirby even gets a special animation this time before using it, and it follows an absolute onslaught of a boss rush. You fight like 5 bosses in a row because once again you run into the defense API, but I'm not mad at the repetitiveness here because the bosses are a little more difficult. This is definitely my favorite level from this area. Everything about it felt like this game at its best. From the music, to the visuals, to the puzzles, to the abilities available to you. There's even a jet section in this level, but I love it too because of the appearing platforms. Dodging those with this jet upgrade is so smooth, and it's so clean. And that's not even to mention that Gigabyte 2.0 appears with a Hyper-Amp moveset. This level is everything I love about this game. I just enjoyed this level so much, and it made me so excited to make my way to the final boss of the game after completing it. Level 6 is the final level of Kirby Planet Robobot. So really quick, I just want to say a quick thanks to all of you who sat through this entire video so far of me just rambling about a 9-year-old Nintendo 3DS game. That really means a lot to me. Anyways, I got my choice of abilities before the fight, made my way in. The presentation for this level was already cool, because we greet Susie once again. And he's back. I couldn't believe it. He looks even dumber than before. Luckily for me though, this fight isn't too dumb, and it's even a little bit fun if I'm being honest. Fighting Meta Knight in the president of a mega corporation's office was never something I could predict, but the floor is really nice at least. Mecha Knight, I should say, has a really long metal tail that actually made this fight a bit more interesting than the last one, but it still wasn't all that great. They did my guy pretty dirty in this game. Next we face the final big bad, President Haltman. This fight is pretty cool. He has some unique quirks that make for a good time. He throws $100,000 bills, yes, like $100,000 on one bill, on the screen. He forces you into showdowns with his little henchmen. He'll Beyblade all over the arena. He shoots giant lasers at you. The spectacle here is missing, but that doesn't mean the presentation is bad, even a little bit. They really went all out on their creative ideas here, and the moveset for him is actually cool. He has quite the bag of tricks he can pull out at any time. He's a fun character and an even funner fight. Once he's defeated, a cutscene plays, marking the end of the story. Just kidding. Once he goes down, the story turns into I have no mouth and I must scream. A genius supercomputer awakens, and it threatens the destruction of every living thing. It's up to Kirby and his friends to stop it. Kirby eats Meta Knight's ship though, and flies off into space, and that is probably the sickest part of this whole thing. So when I said Area 6 was the last area, I meant traditional area. Technically Area 7 is the last one, but it's strictly dedicated to the final battle of our story. This battle is so grand, and it's such a trippy fight. I really love the design of the final form. It counts down from 5 with each number representing a new attack. The final section is Kirby getting in the mech suit for one last time, and seeing the final cutscene just brought everything together. I really love the final sequence of this game, and it's not something I really want to touch on too much, because even if you've already played the game, or if you don't care about spoilers, I still think it's something you should experience for yourself to really paint the picture. It's also just not something I have a lot to say on. I think it's amazing, and it's my favorite part of the game, besides for all the other favorite parts I've mentioned so far. So that brings us to the end. Kirby saves the world and everything goes back to normal. Susie flies off for whatever she has planned next, good or bad, and the game comes to an end. There's a Meta Knight spin-off game inside this one that I've been having a lot of fun with, but that's not the focus of today's video. It is really good though, I'll say. To wrap up this video, I'll give some concluding thoughts. I think this game's really fun. I don't know if I like it more than Forgotten Land, but it's definitely in contest for Return to Dreamland for me. If there's any other Kirby games you guys want to see me play or talk about, make sure to leave them in the comments, and make sure to subscribe for any of my future videos. Anyways, that's all from me today. I hope you guys had a good time, and I'll see you in the future. Goodbye.